Namaskaram friends. So in this discussion I am going to talk about four important issues which are making news. I'm not today is taking five issues because one is relevant, one is I already covered it is related to the, you can say, heat domes which I already covered in the previous discussion video. So today's are four important topics. First one is related with the right to property in India, position of the right to property in India. Second one is land subsidence. We know that in a Josimat there is a, you can say, chaos going on due to the land subsidence. So we are talking about its nitty-gritty and its scientific region, how it is happen, why it is happen in that region. Third one is I am going to talk about Pravasi Bharati Divas again, some facts related to it. And in fourth one I am going to talk about the FRBM, fiscal responsibility and budget management. So let's discuss each and every topic of today's discussion. First one is related to the position of right to property in India. So originally Article 19(1)(f) and Article 13(1) contain the right to property. Okay, so remember, originally, not currently. Originally Article 19(1)(f) and Article 31 contain the right to property. That means to acquire, hold and dispose of property subject to the right of a state to compulsory acquisition for public purpose by authority of law. Okay, that means Article 19(1)(f) and 31 contain the right to property. That means to acquire, hold and dispose of your property subject to the condition of the acquirement, you can say, state compulsory acquire for the public purpose by the authority of law. So remember it. However, right to property ceased to be a fundamental right when the Constitution 44th Amendment Act 1978 omitted subclause F of Article 19(1)(a) and Article 31 of the Constitution. Through the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act, we omitted the subclause F of Article 90 as well as Article 31 from the Constitution. And currently the right to property is a legal right available to any person. So currently right to property is not a fundamental right, it is a legal right. Earlier under Article 1, Article 19(1)(f) and Article 13(1), it is a fundamental right, but through 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978 we omitted the subclause F of Article 19(1) as well as Article 31, and it is currently right to property is a legal right available to any person. Article 300(a) provides that no person shall be deprived of his property save by authority of law, because it is right to property is a legal right under Article 300(a), and it provides that no person shall be deprived of his property save by authority of law. So remember, earlier right to property is a fundamental right, currently it is a legal right, and it is amended by the through the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. We omitted the subclause F of 19(1) as well as Article 31. Okay, and under Article 300(a) it is a legal right. So now we are going to solve one question based on it. What is the position of the right to property in India? Option A is fundamental right available to citizen only. No, it is not a fundamental right. Legal right available to any person. Yes. Legal right available to citizens only. No. Neither fundamental right nor legal right. No. Option B is correct. Legal right available to any person. Maybe he or she is a citizen or not. Let's move on to the second topic called land subsidence. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, according to the NOAA, subsidence is the sinking of ground because of underground material movement. When underground material is moved, then sinking of ground is happen, and that phenomena is called subsidence. It can happen for a host of reasons. There are various reasons through which it can happen. For either it is a man-made or natural, such as the removal of water, oil or natural resources along with the mining activity. So these are the man-made reasons. When we remove water, oil and natural gas along with mining activity, then this types of land subsidence phenomena is occurring. And the natural reason are earthquakes, soil erosion and soil compaction are also some of the well known cause of subsidence. So remember, removal of water, oil and natural gas along with the mining activity or the man-made phenomena of land subsidence, and earthquakes, soil erosion and soil compaction are the some of well known reason for the land subsidence, and it is the natural phenomena. The exact reason behind Josimat land subsidence is still unknown. Okay, what is the exact reason of it? Is still unknown, but experts suggest that the incident might have occurred because of, they suggest many reasons, like unplanned construction. We know that in Josimat unplanned construction are going on a large scale. Population are increases on that place. Obstruction of the natural flow of water, and okay, we obstruct the natural flow of water within the ground. This is one of the reason. And hydel power activity, there are hydel power activity going on in near about region. This is also one of the major cause. So important causes are unplanned construction, overpopulation, obstruction of the natural flow of water, and hydel power activity. Not only this, the area is a seismic zone, which makes it prone to the frequent earthquake, and we know due to earthquake subsidence is occurring. Experts say that unplanned and unauthorized construction has led to the blocking of the natural flow of water, which eventually result in frequent landslide. When natural flow of water is obstructed, then frequent landslide types of phenomena is going on, and experts say that due to unauthorized construction, this phenomena is going on in that region. That's why land subsidence is happening in the Josimat region. There is currently we have a not known exact cause of it, but experts suggest this may be the reason of that. Okay, let's solve one question based on it. Which of the following factors can lead to land subsidence? First one is earthquake, yes. Soil erosion, yes. Obstruction of the natural flow of water, yes. Soil compaction, yes. Hydel power activity, yes. So all the statements are correct. Let's check the option. Select the correct answer. A 1 2 3 4 1 3 4 5 1 2 4 5 1 2 3 4 and 5. So option is option D is correct. 1 2 3 4 and 5. Let's move on to the next topic called Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. So the 17th edition of the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas PBD was commemorated on January 9. And why we choose January 9 only for this event? January 9 was selected as it was the date when Mahatma Gandhi returned to India from South Africa in 1950. We know that in 1950 Mahatma Gandhi returned to India from South Africa, and on that day the date is January 9. That's why we choose this date as a Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. An award called the Pravasi Bharatiya Samman Award is given out as a part of the program. Okay, Pravasi Bharatiya Samman Award is given in this program. According to the official website, it is the highest honor conferred on a non-resident Indian. It is the highest award which is conferred to an NRI, person of Indian origin, or an organization or institution established and run by them. Okay, so any organization, institution established and run by the NRI and OICs, as well as to the NRI as well as OIC, this award is given, and this is the highest award given to any overseas Indians or NRIs. The award is to commemorate the contribution of Indian diaspora to create a better understanding of India abroad. Okay, so this award is commemorate the contribution of Indians diaspora to create a better understanding of India abroad, support India's cause, and work for the welfare of the local Indian community. So for this purpose, we conferred this award to the NRI and OIC. These are create a better understanding of India abroad in different country. You show the best, you can say better picture of India, support India's cause as well as work for the welfare of the local Indian community in that area as well as in the India also. A Eurocom award committee with the vice president as the chairman and external affairs ministry as the vice chair and other distinguished members from various walk of life considered the nomination and unanimously selected the awardees. So a jury cum award committee nominate the unanimously select the awardees, and in which vice chairperson as well as external affairs minister are also included as a member. So I hope you understand the whole idea of Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. Now let's solve one question based on this. January 9 was selected to celebrate the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, and it was the date when Mahatma Gandhi returned to India from South Africa in 1950. Yes, statement 1 is correct. Statement 2, Pravasi Bharatiya Samman Award is given as a part of Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, which is the highest honor conferred to a non-resident Indian, person of Indian origin, or an organization or institution established and run by them. Yes, this one is also correct. Third one is the President of India act as a chairman. President act as a chairman for the jury cum award committee of the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. No, vice chairman of India act as a chairman and external affairs minister act as a vice chairman. So statement 3 is wrong. So only statement 1 and 2 is correct. Just check the option which of the statement is correct. A is 1 only, B is 1 and 2, C is 1 and 3, D is 1, 2 and 3. So B is correct, 1 and 2. Let's move on to the last topic called FRBM. Under the current FRBM provision, government are mandated to disclose their contingent liability. Okay, so what is the current provision of FRBM, in which it is mandated that government have to disclose their contingent liability, but that disclosure is restricted to liability for which they have extended an expletive guarantee. It is not, government is not liable to disclose uh, all the contingent liability. The government disclosure is restricted to the liability for which they have extended an expletive guarantee. If government have extended an expletive guarantee for some liability, only then liability is mandated to disclose by the FRBM provisions. Under the constitution, states are required to take the center's permission when they borrow. Okay, so under the constitution, remember, under the constitution, states are required to take the center's permission when they borrow, in case the state is indebted to the centers over a previous loan. Okay, if state is non-indebted to the center over a previous loan, there is no requirement to take permission from the center. But if state is indebted to the center over a previous loan, it is the requirement of a state that it take permission from the center, and it is under the constitution. Next one is, Constitution of India allow the president to declare financial emergency in any state if a state is satisfied, if he or she is satisfied that the financial stability is threatened. So if any chief minister of any country, he or she is satisfied that the financial stability of any state is threatened, then Constitution of India allow the president to declare financial emergency in that state. So I hope you understand the whole idea of FRBM and liability of the center, liability, disclosure of contingent liability by the center, permission, you can say, state take permission from the center when they are indebted to the center over a previous loan, as well as declaration of financial emergency in a state. So I hope you understand the whole idea of it. Now we are going to solve one question based on it. Consider the following statement. Under the current fiscal responsibility and budget management FRBM provision, government are mandated to disclose their contingent liability. Yes, this one is correct. Second one is, under the constitution, states are not required to take the center's permission when they borrow, even in the case the state is indebted to the center over a previous loan. No, it is under the constitution. It is said that government, if state government is indebted to the center over a previous loan, then that state have to take permission from the center. Constitution of India, so statement 2 is correct. Constitution of India allow the president to declare financial emergency in any state if he or she is satisfied that financial stability is threatened. Yes, Constitution mandated that, so statement 3 is correct. Statement 2 is correct, 3 is correct. Statement 1 is correct, 2 is wrong, statement 3 is correct. That means 1 and 3. Let's just look at the option. Which of the above statements are correct? A is 2 and 3, B is 1 and 3. I'm sorry, A is 2 and 3, B is 1 and 2, C is 1 and 3, D is 3 only. So statement option 3 is correct, 1 and 3, because statement 2 is wrong. So I hope you understand this lecture. So today we are discussing 4 topic, and in last, let's say for comparison purpose, I talk about some important aspect of any you can say one question from geography. When we look at the map of India, we know that different state some states are share boundary with neighboring countries, some states share boundary with, you can say, ocean, and some states are landlocked. Okay, if you see the map of India, you see that clearly state of Rajasthan, state of Gujarat, state of Punjab, state of Jammu, not state of Punjab, I think Rajasthan, Gujarat, Jammu and Kashmir, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Sikkim, West Bengal, Myanmar. These are the states which and also West Bengal. You can say some state of, you can say, Mizoram, Tripura, and Assam are touching the boundary of the foreign country. So just remember the name of the state, which state share the boundary of how many country, and also how many number of foreign countries are touched by the Indian states. Okay, so just look at the map. We know that Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar, Bangladesh, and if you consider Sri Lanka, no, but Sri Lanka is an island country. So all these 6 states are touching the boundary of Indian states, and states which are landlocked or not touching the boundary of any state or any coasts are you can clearly see these are Telangana, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and Haryana, Punjab. So there are many states like that. So if any question come regarding it, which state touching the boundary of which country, or how many number countries are touching the Indian border, which state touching the coastal region, okay, give name of the neighboring countries. So it is very important in diplomacy and in other international relation. So I hope you understand the concept of sharing boundaries of Indian state as well as foreign country. So if I make a question, how many number of countries are touching the Indian soil? How many number of foreign countries are touching the Indian soil? Option A is 5, option 2 is 6, option 3 is 8, option 4 is 9. So which one is correct? I think 6 is correct. Okay. Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, Nepal, Bhutan, okay, Myanmar, and Bangladesh. So all this, I think 7 country, not, yeah, 7 country, no? Yeah. Option 1 is 6 country, option 2 is 7 country, option C is 8 country, option D is 9 country. So 7 is correct. Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar, and Bangladesh. So I think 6, yeah. So 6 countries are sharing border with the Indian soil. We consider if we consider Sri Lanka as a neighboring country, but it is not touching. It is a island country. Okay. So option B is correct. 6 countries are touching the boundary of Indian soil. So I hope you understand the whole idea of border country, how many number of foreign countries touching the Indian soil, and how many number of states are touching the foreign country. So I hope you understand this lecture, enjoy this lecture, and gain some perspective, some idea out of it. So namaskaram. Thank you. I'm sorry guys, in the last question I choose option B, that means 6 countries are sharing border with India. So this one is wrong. While I talking I give the name of the 7 country, but in option I choose 6. So option C is correct, that means 7 country. We know that Pakistan, Afghanistan on one side, Nepal, Bhutan on other side, Myanmar and Bangladesh on next side, and China on the north side. So in the west, Pakistan, Afghanistan; in the north, China, Nepal, Bhutan; and the east, in the east side, Myanmar; and in the, you can say, southeast side, Bangladesh. So all the 7 countries are sharing border with India, not 6. Number is 7. While talking, I talk about the 7 countries. I naming the 7 countries, but in option I choose the 6 countries are sharing border with India. So this one is wrong. Okay, number of countries share border with India is 7, and remember also its location. We know that if you look at the map of India, in each side, in Pakistan, in, you can say, northeast, not northeast, in the south side it is near Jammu and Kashmir, Afghanistan. In the north side of India, China, Nepal, and Bhutan. In the east side of India it is Myanmar, and in the north of, in the south of Assam is Bangladesh, or you can say east of West Bengal is Bangladesh. So 7 countries are sharing border with, 7 foreign countries are sharing border with India. So there is a small correction from the last question. So I hope you understand it and do not mind it. So thank you.